Deputy Holly Cairns. I beg your pardon. Yeah, Deputy Holly Cairns. Yeah.
Thank you, Las Cian Corla. In the last hour or two, I turned 31, and I say that because, for one, it's ridiculous that we're consistently keeping staff here past midnight, and for two, I have a birthday wish, and that is just for a small bit of cop on in relation to marts. I'm wondering what your plans are to respond to the crisis in the sector, and you know, in relation to all of the online issues, like, will you just look at making plans to reopening physical marts?
Thank you,
Minister.
Minister, which minister is answering?
Yeah, thank you very much, Gaila, and happy birthday, Deputy Cairns.
Thank you.
But definitely, I hope you find other ways to celebrate it in other years other than the way we're doing it tonight. But I hope the day ahead finishes better than the way it is starting anyway here in the chamber. But again, thanks to the staff for being here with us, and I take your point in relation to the late hour that we're here. And I propose to take your question with Deputy Crows as well, questions 29 and 36. As you know, Deputy, the Department has adapted the conditions under which marts must operate since April to reflect the various measures introduced by the Government to stop the spread of COVID and to allow marts to remain operational throughout the COVID crisis. From April to June the 8th, marts operated without public attendance at sales rings, with marts being able to operate transactions online or to facilitate the brokering of sales. So over the course of the summer, we have seen the opportunity and the introduction of online start to work better and become a very positive aspect of sales. Of course, on the 19th of October, we did move, and the Taoiseach announced the country moving to level 5. And the announcement that it would be online only, I'll bet with buyers being able to go in by appointment in advance of the sale starting to view cattle and livestock. Certainly, by and large, in terms of the way marts have operated and the volume going through marts and also the prices being received by farmers, there has been lots of positive outcomes in that regard, albeit it has been a very, very challenging experience both for marts and for farmers. And it's certainly, while many had got used to online over the summer, many hadn't. And there's no doubt that a blended approach to sales is the way forward, and the way that it will revert to. And we'd all like to see it revert to in due course. We are, however, in level 5, and the priority at the moment is public health. And marts now do have the opportunity to operate online, whereas in the earlier part of the pandemic restrictions, that availability wasn't there to them. Just to give some feedback in relation to how it has been operating. So from the 19th to the 31st of October, and as we know, we went to level 5 on the 21st, the cattle throughput in marts came to 88,000 head. And this compares to 93,000 head in the corresponding period in 2019. So that would amount to 94% of the volume in 2019. And in relation to the number of marts operating as well during the period of level 5 restrictions has been the same as during the number operating at the same time last year. So, and as I pointed out earlier on in response to questions, and if you're looking at even the Irish Independent Farming section today, the mart reports, and also the mart reports from the Farmers Journal last week too, and the feedback from mart managers, certainly the feedback is that the prices are holding up. Indeed, they're up among certain categories. And I would make the point that while the blended option, without a doubt, will be the way of the future and is the optimal, of that taken into account we're currently in level 5 and the restrictions that are imposed as a result of that. If the online platforms were down, for example, and you only had a small number, let's say 20 around the ring, that would have a very significant impact on competition in those marts as well, because the experience has been that online, while challenging for some, has meant that there's been a lot of people being able to involve themselves in auctions, and that's why we're seeing prices hold up and indeed increase in some ways. So I know it is really challenging. I understand the difficulty the farmers have. I understand the challenges that mart managers have had in relation to trying to adapt to that. But certainly, apart from the Saturday week last, where 16 marts were affected by the online platform going down for over 2 hours, albeit only 4 were cancelled. It has been continuing to improve, and we're now seeing volumes increase as well and confidence increase.
Thank you. Deputy Cairns. 1 minute.
Yeah, I acknowledge that the online mart sale systems have been in operation since early April, and hundreds of thousands of cattle and sheep have been bought and sold successfully through the various online platforms. But I suppose it still simply isn't feasible to expect farmers to go online instead of to the mart when it's an essential part of essential work and there simply isn't the broadband for some. So we understand and agree, I think all farmers do, that public health is the priority. Nobody's disputing that, and I'll take your word in terms of the prices holding up. But given that farmers have to attend marts and simply can't do it online, some of them simply can't, I'm asking, will you look into steps that could be taken to reopen them safely, given that that is the case for some people? The government's own broadband plan identifies that 40% of marts across the country have poor broadband services, which require upgrading. And then obviously we know so many farms don't have broadband. So I'm wondering, how do you expect that to work for people who just cannot access broadband? And for that reason, could we just look into reopening them safely? Because I agree with you that public health has to be the priority, but can we just look into it again?
Thank you. Deputy Crowe.
I know, Deputy Crowe, in relation to the 6 Mile Bridge, Mart, which you've raised with me before, I believe it did manage to finish its sale last Saturday, and that and I think the other point in relation to Mart sales in general online, that the clearance rates have been very high. And very much in line with what traditional Mart clearance sales would be, very, very similar to it, certainly. And in relation to your point, Deputy Cairns, I certainly am monitoring it very closely and have been watching it really, really closely and liaising and talking to farmers from the North Donegal right down to South Kerry in relation to their experience, and also to Mart managers. And as I said earlier in the Dáil, the most important thing for farmers is price. And certainly the feedback is that prices have been holding up. Certainly I think that means the experience for sellers and those, and while there's been reluctance by some to actually go to the market, we're seeing that improve and volumes increase. The experience for sellers has been a good one. It's been more challenging for buyers because not everyone is as adept, although many are adjusting. Not everybody's adept to buying online. I admit it's not ideal, but I am monitoring closely, and I think certainly everybody deserves credit for how it has operated.
Deputy Cairns, good night.
I suppose in relation to that, it's back to the same issue, and I completely accept everything that you're saying in relation to how it's working, the prices, all of those things, but it doesn't address the question that I asked originally and the second time round, which is, what do people do who can't actually access broadband, who don't have access to it on their farm? There's no solution for those people, and given that that is the situation, could you look into the reopening of marts in a different way that perhaps is safer and that can prioritise public health but also allow everybody to take part? Because you acknowledge, it's an essential service, it's an essential part of essential work that some people can't take part in due to restrictions that they can't control if they can't access broadband.
Thank you. Deputy.
Yeah, thank you to Deputies Cairns and Crowe for raising this. I do think we should acknowledge that, for many farmers, being able to bid online in the safety of their home and not having to actually go out has been welcome for some. There's no doubt that there has been challenges for those that don't have internet access. If we compare it to the situation back in March, April, where online wasn't available and where it was a bidding and a tendering process for stock, it's a much more preferable situation now. That tendering option is still available for farmers that maybe don't have internet access, working with their mart managers to try and facilitate them. I know some are doing that, and there's no doubt, and I accept absolutely, it is challenging, there is inconveniences there. I do go back to the fact that in relation to the sales, that the clearances are very good and the prices are holding up from a seller's point of view. But it is challenging from a buyer's point of view. But it is a reflection of the fact that we are in level 5 and the national challenge we have at the moment in relation to the pandemic. But I will continue to keep it under very close review and do take on board what you're all saying.
I'm moving on. Thank you, Minister. An chéad ceistelle ó cheachtó cuimh.